A busy and news-filled weekend for the Indiana Pacers. First and foremost, a report from the Pacers-Grizzlies game in Memphis about a confrontation between Ja Morant, some of his friends, and the Pacers. We'll talk about that. Sabonis' return to Indy, the Pacers weekend that was, with a win over the Kings and a loss to the Cavs, and the rotation looking a little funky right now. All coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, lots and lots to talk about. We'll start in Memphis. The Pacers game on January 29th ended a while ago, but the stories come in, including a confrontation as the Pacers reportedly were leaving the arena. We'll talk about that report, as well as Domantas Sabonis' return to Indianapolis last Friday. It's the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of emotions when it comes to those stories. The Pacers weekend that was, we'll talk about the two games, and a lot of people talking about and asking about their rotation, who is and isn't playing right now, mostly with young guys. And I will share my stance on that because I kind of have before, but I think people are overthinking it a little bit, and yet it is still something worth discussing with the trade deadline in now 4 days. Can't believe how much it's sneaking up. We will go bad cop, good cop first. That's not a good way to discuss this or lead into this, but two stories of very big note for the Pacers over the weekend. First one comes out of Memphis, reporting from Sam Amick and Bob Kravitz in The Athletic, says the NBA had to investigate an incident in Memphis regarding friends and associates of Ja Morant in the FedEx Forum after the game ended. So if you read the story in The Athletic, really good investigative stuff going on from Amick and Bob. Apparently after the game, or first of all, if you remember, during the game, there was a lot of jawing going on in the second half. I remember watching the broadcast that Andrew Nembhard, James Johnson, I think Chris Duarte were the three that I noticed. I'm sure there's more, but there was some jawing going on between Morant and players, and apparently that stemmed from stuff going on between, you've heard of Morant's dad being involved in this stuff. I'm not sure he was in this one, but one of Morant's friends getting into it with Pacers players during the game. In the Athletic story, it says, quote, during the January 29th game, several Pacers players and Grizzlies team members verbally sparred, and Morant's father, T, and one of Morant's longtime friends, Devontae Park, also directed comments at Pacers players. In the third quarter, Pack walked onto the court and directed expletives at multiple Pacers players. A game referee interceded, called arena security, and Pack was removed from the floor. So then the story goes on to describe an incident where Pacers traveling party is how it's described. So that could be any number of people. It doesn't matter who it is. Just that's the terminology used. We're loading towards the team bus in like the parking garage, docking loading area, whatever you want to call it, where the team bus is. And some of the Ja Morant's friends, again, the word used in the piece headline is associates, walk towards the group of the Pacers traveling party. They're having a little shouting match for, I think it says like 15 to 20 minutes at that point. Yes, that is what it says. And then Morant comes into this loading area and he gets in an SUV with some guys, and some other people get in a different SUV. And then the big part of the story and the headline part is that one of the SUVs was driving slowly. This is the one that Ja Morant was reportedly riding in. They trained a red laser on them on the Pacers traveling party. And then there's a Pacers security guard in the loading area at the time, remarking in the story on a quote that says, "That's 100% a gun." The NBA did investigate this. And the results of that investigation came out today. I reached out to the NBA for comment. Mike Bass, their communications guy, sent me the same statement that they had in the Athletic article. He said, NBA security and league investigators conducted an investigation, interviewing numerous eyewitnesses and reviewing video surveillance following allegations made by the Indiana Pacers organization regarding a post-game incident on January 29th. While we substantiated that a post-game situation arose that was confrontational based on interviews and other evidence gathered, we cannot corroborate that any individual threatened others with a weapon. Certain individuals involved in the post-game situation and a related matter during the game that night have been subsequently banned from attending games in the arena. If additional information becomes available related to the post-game situation, the league office will conduct a further review. So the investigation part's over. Pacers don't play the Grizzlies again this year. To the extent of this season, I suppose that's the end of it. There was no police report filed, according to the Athletic story, out of retaliation fear. So that's obviously very alarming and scary that something like that could happen. Again, TBD on, or not even TBD, I guess. Details not clear because the NBA did not find any, like they said, that any sort of situation involving weapons was involved, but very scary that this could happen in this way. We got to talk to Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton after the game. We asked them about it. Miles Turner said that he was not around when everything went down. He heard stories about it, so he can't really talk about it because he didn't see it. But he said, I think things get blown out of proportion in reports and stuff like that because of clickbait and all that type of stuff. I personally can't speak to what happened, but that's what we have NBA security and team security for. And then Rick Carlisle said, I wasn't there when that incident happened. He was in the locker room. He said somebody called him. He was going, and then it was over when he got there. And he said the NBA investigated it. From there, I think it's a thing that's over. So based on reporting, yes, incident did happen. What actually transpired, not known perfectly. They could not determine it, is what it said. So they could not corroborate, not determine. So that's a key distinction I want to get across, but we don't, again, without knowing all the details, I think that the NBA investigated, this story is over, but still a scary situation worth covering and monitoring going forward. Ja Morant did tweet about it. If you would like to check out his Twitter feed, his tweet says, did an investigation, seen they were capping, still let an article come out to paint this negative image on me and my fam and ban my brother from home games for a year. Unbelievable, with a crying, laughing emoji. Not good story, not a good situation, and we'll see if anything else comes of it. And I would like to cover it so everybody knows what's going on. The other newsy thing that happened for the Pacers this weekend was the exact opposite end of the spectrum. No scary situation here at all. Domantas Sabonis, former Pacers All-Star, returned to Indiana on Friday night. It was awesome to see Domas again in Indy. I talked to him in Sacramento earlier this season. We were talking about the Pacers, and he said, I'm here because of the Pacers. That's where his career took off, and he became the two-time All-Star. He was a reserve big when he got here. He said, they took a chance on me in that trade. We went out there and took advantage, put them back on the map. A big part of my career is there. Then in this game, awesome tribute video. Pacers completely nailed it. He was obviously emotional during that. He said it was cool, and Sabonis said he wished he got the win. That was a big-time Pacers win to get it over Halliburton and Hield's former team. Hield was really good. He had the dunk of his life in that game, and they defended very well. De'Aaron Fox did not play for the Kings, but the Pacers needed all the defensive boost they could get. They defended pretty well against the Lakers and pretty good for 2 quarters against the Cavs and the whole game against the Kings. We'll talk about their defense in the second segment, but they defended well against Sabonis' team to get the win, which Sabonis didn't like. And he joked that he didn't know where he was going, right? Every time he's been to Cambridge, except for one game his rookie season with the Thunder, he's been on the home team, right? He had to ask Trey Lyles kind of where to go and how to get around inside Cambridge, which I thought was very funny for him to reveal. He noted the day before that he kind of drove around the city and saw some of the old places he lived and things like that. It's all kind of different, right? When you're the road team. He said it was fun. Sabonis said it was great. Miles is having a career year and he's playing amazing. They battled the whole game. Sabonis had 15 points and 16 rebounds. Turner played very well, 14 points and 13 rebounds. Turner said, hats off to Domas. He's having a hell of a season. It's fun to go back and forth with him. They had a nice moment pregame on the floor. And then Sabonis, at the end, I asked him to get, emotional a little bit and say, what did it feel like to kind of, have that tribute video, be back here, all that kind of stuff. And he said, everyone always wants to come back. You want to come back. You want to play in front of the fans again, have a good game and get the win tonight. We couldn't do it. Hopefully there's many more years of that. And I think that there will always be a little bit extra for Halliburton playing in Sacramento and Sabonis playing in Indy. They obviously have huge connections to those fan bases. Halliburton sort of, a bridge from the Kings days in the bottoms of the NBA standings, helping them get out of that. And then they were able to trade him to now be the 3rd seed in the West. Sabonis helping the Pacers stay afloat post PG and then being their best player for a couple seasons. Now he's a 3-time All-Star. Halliburton's an All-Star. Everybody wins. And now the fanfare part of this is gone. Like, they'll still go and have more emotions in their old city, but there won't be the videos, the oh my gosh, your back's, all that. There'll just be like, hey, good to see you again, and all sorts of standard issue sort of phrasing from a guy returning to his old city. But it was really fun for Domas to be back. I'm glad he got to do that about a year after the trade, and that's all settled. Both teams have played their first road game, and both home teams defended home court after the trade, which is, of course, very funny and fitting. The Kings and Pacers will be forever connected as long as those two players remain with their franchises. I also thought What a poetic week last week was for the Pacers. First of all, how poetic that they name All-Stars on Thursday and Halliburton and Sabonis both get it. The very next day, Kings Pacers, right? And I also thought it was poetic. The day before was their first game after the Miles Turner extension. Miles Turner extension on Monday, $60 million. 3 days later, how about their first game against the Lakers, the team he was connected to all offseason? A poetic week in that way for the Pacers with their matchup. So strange opening segment, a lot of newsy stuff, but stuff that I think needed to be covered. One really exciting, happy thing for the franchise to have one of the former All-Stars in the building. One, the opposite, scary, alarming thing that required league investigation that we need to be monitored going forward. Let's pivot, talk about basketball, the actual games the Pacers played this weekend against the Kings, getting a win, and then playing the Cavs with some momentum and getting blown off their home floor against a division rival. All coming in the second segment. What did the Pacers do poorly this weekend? Why did they get smoked by the Cavs after looking like they'd figured some stuff out on Friday night? We'll talk about all that. Before we do that, though, let me talk to you guys about PrizePicks tonight. Take Luka Doncic to score more or less than 26.5 points with his new teammate Kyrie Irving. LeBron to have more or less than 7.5 rebounds. That's the whole gist of PrizePicks. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch: NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, you name it, they got it. College sports. You can make entries in 1 minute or less. It's easy. It's safe. There's fast withdrawals. It's currently operational in over 30 states in Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. You get the idea. Don't forget, enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, it's going off script. Locked On Mavs, not the team the Pacers played this weekend, not the team coming up on the schedule, the team that just traded for Kyrie Irving. Also Locked On Nets, both of them, to figure out how this happened so quickly, at least publicly quickly. Obviously, this has been a long time coming, given how the Nets summer went in 2022, but my goodness. This came out of nowhere. I can't believe the Mavs did this. I can't believe the Nets did this. I can't believe this has happened at all. The Mavs will break down why their team traded for Kyrie Irving. The Nets will break down what happens for Brooklyn. Locked On has it all. Local experts on the biggest stories, your team every day. That's why I like this network. You can always have someone who is covering that team and has something to say. And that trade certainly will merit it. And I am looking forward to listening to both of those shows tomorrow. Let's continue with Pacers, though. We had quite a hectic weekend of games. The Kings game was going to be emotional, and it was. That kind of those always lead to like weirder games. And this was a slower paced Pacers game. They beat the Kings. Great game from the Pacers, not because they won, but because of how they won. They gave up 104 points. Great defensive game. They haven't had a game like that in a while. And in the way the NBA trends this season, Rick Carlisle has brought this number up a lot. 30 points in a quarter, right? That's a lot. If you give up 30 points in a quarter for all of them, you will lose. But if you can hold your opponent under 30, 27, 28-ish, all of a sudden they're at like 110, you can win that, right? So that's kind of an arbitrary number in his head. And they only gave up 30 points in one quarter that game. They themselves had a really good second quarter, and their defense looked good. And that was noteworthy to me because last week the Pacers had 3 days off between games, and on their most intense practice, I asked Carlisle, hey, what was kind of your focus today with such an intense practice? He said defense right away, right? So they were really dialed in to try to lock in on the end of the floor. And I noted after their Lakers game last week, they did lose on Thursday. They did defend okay in that game until the second half. Really, not even that. Really, until the fourth quarter, they defended pretty well in that game, right? Their defense does look better. It did against the Cavs in spurts as well, but that was noteworthy in their Kings game. And then the first quarter against the Cavs, they defended well again. So I thought that, given that first game that they won, and the first quarter against the Cavs, really the first quarter, the first half of the second quarter, and the fourth quarter, the Pacers defended well against the Cavs. And then that little other 18-minute stretch, they did not defend well at all against Cleveland. They looked like the defense was there. And I think that's a promising sign for the Pacers, who have not been defending well recently. Horrible defense for most of January or all this season, but it really fell apart in some key stretches against Cleveland. Mainly the ones I just noted, but that game is very fresh in my brain. 35 in the second quarter, 36 in the third quarter for the Pacers, who had their own offensive struggles in that game. But you're not going to beat the Cavs that way, right? They already have a massive size disadvantage. They have to kind of shoot well to keep up, and they didn't. But their defense did fall apart, and some of that is they missed shots. The Cavs got out in transition. But either way, though, it was like half of the Pacers were winning halfway through the second quarter, right? From that point on to the end of the third, the Cavs were awesome on offense. The rest of the game, the Pacers defense was pretty good. This sounds too optimistic. The Pacers got smoked by 19 in one game and barely held on against the Kings, but they did take some meaningful steps forward to me this weekend with the way that they defended, especially to beat a team like the Kings. Yes, Fox did not play, but who have a really good offense and a really good system and really good shooters, and actually to lock in and defend that team well, I thought was impressive. To carry some of that in to their Sunday game was good stuff from this team. And yet they lost big time. They scored a total of 210 over the weekend. So the promising steps forward on offense, they take a step back. The promising step forward on defense, they take a step back on the offensive end of the floor. Halliburton's back, 26-12 against the Lakers in his first game, named an All-Star that day. Looked fantastic in that game, right? Looked huge. His stats might be down a little bit, and I'm not saying that to say he's playing bad. He had 15 and 11 a couple hours ago as I'm recording this against the Cavs, and he had 10 and 9 against the Kings. He's getting a lot of defensive attention right now, a ton of it, right? He's still doing a good job. He was plus 18 against the Kings. He was minus 30 against the Cavs, but he's doing a good job still. I don't think his low stats are reflective of him playing poorly. I think his stats are reflective of the Pacers' offensive struggles in general. That when he is pressured more, I think teams figured out a little bit that when he was out, how much of the Pacers' offense he kind of sets in motion, right? Anthony Davis over the weekend called him the head of the snake for this Pacers team, right? And he totally is that. And so, yes, he's back, and that's helped everybody, right? Nesmith, brilliant last 3 games. 24 against the Lakers, 17 on Friday. He's looking good. He's getting better shots. Buddy Hield hit 5 threes on Friday and 4 threes on Sunday. Halliburton sets all this up. Miles Turner had 27 against the Cavs and had a double-double with 14 and 13 against the Kings. I could go on and on. Halliburton makes these guys' lives easier, but their numbers are still down because the Pacers are in an offensive rut, certainly, and they haven't been able to put everything together in these games without him, right? They can do some of the important stuff well, but not all of it, right? They played the Kings. They shot really well. They made 17 threes. They didn't even take a ton, right? They didn't their turnovers are too high. 16 turnovers. They only got to the line 14 times, right? So they shot well. They created good enough shots to stay ahead, be ahead of the Kings, and look like a potent offense. And that's all great. They won that game. But they needed to do more better. They needed to take care of the ball, have more possessions, be more of a threat, and they have to get to the line more. That's something the Pacers have really been struggling with. They had 7 free throw misses on 22 attempts against the Cavs. They also shot poorly from deep and still turned it over 13 times. 13's fine, but they didn't shoot well in that game, right? They have not put together all of the things in a lot of their recent games offensively in terms of efficiency, volume, and efficient type as well. That's a strange differentiation from the first thing I said, but actually making the shots, hunting the best shots, and keeping the ball, right? They have not been able to put all 3 together. Against the Cavs, for example, they would get kind of close to the basket, and even their best drivers would kind of turn around against the Cavs size and pull out and take a worse shot or pass to the wrong guy, not re-space is Carlisle's term, right? They weren't just fully focused on their offensive system of, the random action, the last second sets, the drive, kick, make it happen, set a screen, open 3. That's how they play. They've done very good at that. That wasn't working as much over this weekend. And I'm curious as to why, right? Tyrese Halliburton just returned. That could be part of it. They had to adjust without him. You have to adjust back a little bit now. Maybe it's teams knowing how to defend them a little better. I'll ask Rick Carlisle this week at practice if he notices anything there. But their offense definitely sputtered this week, and they needed it to be better in these 2 games. And it wasn't. They poor finishing at the rim really doomed them in a lot of these games. So they did hold on to win one. The sky is not falling. This is not a catastrophic problem. Tyrese Halliburton is back, and when he's been in the game, they've looked significantly better than when he's on the bench. But they still need a little bit more on the offensive end. And just as they're getting their defense right, the trade-off goes back to the offensive end. And I think TJ McConnell said it best. I think this was the quote from me, for me at least, that kind of was perfect to describe this team, because when I asked him, it was, okay, you score 111 against the Lakers, and that's fine, but a little low. You'd like a little more in the NBA these days. Then 107 against the Kings, and then 103 against the Cavs. Like, those are kind of low numbers and getting lower. What do you feel like is going on there? And TJ McConnell said, I don't really think we're getting out and running as much as we used to. Makes or misses early on. I think we were getting out and going, not letting a bucket affect us on the defensive end. We have to continue to do that better, do a better job of that. I agree that they've been a little slow. They haven't had that same burst to go get the ball when it goes out of bounds or push in transition as strongly as they have. And other teams are getting back on defense more because they know it's a Pacers strength. But either way, the volume hasn't been there. The urgency hasn't been there in those situations. I actually noticed that when they were playing the Kings. I forget who was sitting next to me in media row, and I said, oh, I haven't seen that in a while. Or someone sprints out to get the ball like that. I can't remember who it was. And so more of that, I think, will behoove this team in a way that a lot of other little things will, as they kind of hope to, get back on track, because they've not won 2 games in a row now in a month. I guess they could win against the Heat on the 8th of February, but that would still not be 2 wins in a row. Their last time winning 2 in a row was January 6th and 8th. So Pacers not playing well, desperately needing a win, and not looking like they have all the answers right now. They have tried some new stuff in the rotation, TBD on why or how. We'll find out more as the week progresses and as the trade deadline comes. And that's what I want to close this show talking about. A lot of questions about this. Daniel Theis is playing a lot compared to what many expected. Chris Duarte's not playing. What's the deal with this rotation stuff? Who should and shouldn't play? What's the situation going to be going forward? Does it even matter right this second? I'll try to break it all down in the final segment today. Before we do that, though, got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you have to try Built Bar. Just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, we're going to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then that is where Built Bar can help you out. It's healthy and tasty. They're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. What makes them so good? Well, they're 100% covered in real chocolate, and they've come in unbelievable flavors like churro, coconut almond, and my favorite, the peanut butter brownie. I'm not sure how they do it, but they taste like candy bar while maintaining amazing macros, and what's even better, that they're healthy. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't have to wait around to get a box. I ordered a ton from Built.com. You don't have to do that anymore. You can finally get them in stores like Walmart or Sam's Club. Head to your nearest Walmart, go to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can get a 4-box there of cookies and cream double chocolate or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with their hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Built.com, Built Bar. Try them today. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, jump on over to Locked On Kings. Hear what Matt George has to say about the other team connected to the Pacers via that trade that we just talked about in the first and second segments, and to hear what's going on with that team without De'Aaron Fox. I think they've lost 2 in a row now without their very good player, who was out because I believe he had a baby. Congratulations to De'Aaron Fox. Let's talk about the Pacers rotation and their young guys who are and aren't playing. Now, I'm being a hypocrite, and I will admit it right away. I said when I've said this to other people. I've said this on the show. I think Daniel Theis is playing right now, and he's playing okay, actually. Right against the Kings, Daniel Theis was 3 of 4 from the field. He had 4 rebounds. He was a plus 12. He had 8 points. Good stuff. Looks pretty good. Against the Cavs, Daniel Theis went 3 for 6. He had 2 boards. He had 7 points. He had 2 blocks. He was only minus 4 in a 19-point loss. That's fine. Right? He is playing well. Daniel Theis has good skills. What I'm about to talk about is not a knock on any of the players' names I'm about to say, right? But a lot of fans are wondering, why is Daniel Theis playing so much? They have these young bigs behind him. They drafted one of them themselves with a pick they traded for last year. They traded for the other one and then put on the full court press to try to re-sign him and offered him a starting job in Jalen Smith, who was also a top 10 pick 3 years ago, right? These young guys that they invested in, they drafted, they gave contracts to that they wanted. And then Theis, who maybe they wanted him in the Brogdon trade. I guess I can't say that they didn't want him, but seems like a salary ballast in a trade is now playing instead of them, right? People are asking about that. And I have said the following, I think on the show, definitely to other people, I said, I don't care until February 10th, right? One day after the trade deadline, they have a game, I guess a few games to let them settle in with whatever they do or don't do. But come then I think it matters, because then you're prioritizing whatever you're prioritizing down the stretch of the season. Right this second, that's not necessary. I mean, it's mostly the case, but there's other stuff going on. There are rotation players around the league currently getting DNP CDs. Luke Kennard with the Clippers, right? Clippers always up to something. Aggressive front office. They want to build around PG and Kawhi, try to win a title. Luke Kennard randomly not playing. Interesting, right? Bones Highland, very popularly discussed trade candidate this season. DNPCD tonight for the Nuggets. Last night, tonight, I can't remember. Either way, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see me making an eyebrow gesture, right? Interesting. Sometimes rotation changes happen in early February, and I think you can all figure out with the Thursday deadline why. Now, I'm not saying that the Pacers are doing anything like that. I don't know that they are or aren't. I'm not putting anyone on the spot or saying this is or isn't happening, but Daniel Theis is playing and proving his health and value right before that at a time that is in a situation where I get why other people would think that's the case. So if it is a showcase or whatever, we'll know more about if that's true or not on the 10th. And that's why I think the 10th and those ensuing games matter more. If they play, I forget who they play on Friday. I should know that as I continue this segment. They play the Heat on Wednesday. The Suns. They play the Suns Friday, and then they immediately flip out to Washington to play the Wizards Saturday, right? Assuming the Pacers make maybe one trade, maybe no trades, whatever number you want to use. If they continue to play Theis, then they're just going for it. They're going for the plan. They're going for the playoffs, whatever. They think he's the best option at backup big instead of the young guys. Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson not playing, right? That was noteworthy against the Kings. Neither of them played. They had been alternating games and getting in there every so often, right? Theis played the first half against the Lakers. Then it was Jackson in the second half against the Cavs earlier tonight. Foul trouble for Turner meant Jackson got some extra minutes, and then Smith got in garbage time at the end, as did Terry Taylor. Yeah, it's tricky. Like, they have too many bigs. They do. They just do. So they're playing Theis right now. If they're still, I think it will reveal a lot of their plans again on those 10th and 11th games. If Theis is still playing over the young guys and the young guys are still on the team, I would consider that the wrong choice. And at that point, I would say that doesn't make sense, right? They're on a long-term path. Play your young guys, develop them, see what you have, see who they fit and don't fit with, all that sort of stuff. Right today, right this second, I don't think it's worth discussing much more than I just did or getting up in arms about with stuff that could be going on behind the scenes. That said, certainly with the trade deadline coming up, even beyond the guys I've said, you have Theis, Bitadze's in this mix, Terry Taylor, who I just said could play 4-5, Smith, Jackson, and Theis. That's too many backup bigs. That's way too many, to be honest, right? It's just too many guys. You can't play, even you can play sometimes two bigs at once, but like you can't even play four bigs in a game, nonetheless six. So even in the most extreme examples, you have too many, right? I think that moving one to two of them, if they get good offers, makes sense. Again, I don't know their offers, but that's a separate conversation. What I'm saying is I don't think right now I care who they play and don't play. I think they're figuring it out too with the deadline coming up with all these bigs, like who is and isn't in our future plans. And they kind of know more of what they have with the young guys than Theis, who's never played for them ever before last Thursday. So I don't think that's a conversation worth having until the end of next weekend. Then I think it's a much more serious conversation worth having about what the Pacers should be doing for the rest of the season, what they are doing, and how good their players remaining on the roster still are. But that's my take on that. Now, there is another player involved in all this, and that is Chris Duarte, who got, for the first time of his career, a did not play coach's decision on Friday. On Sunday, he sat out with an ankle injury. I had a bunch of people on Twitter replying to me being like, oh, that means he got traded. Oh my gosh, he's hurt. Why do people do that? They did it when Turner got hurt in January too. He got in a contract extension. Players getting hurt means they got hurt. What's much more noteworthy is what I just talked about, a coach's decision like Kennard, like Highland. I don't know if Duarte will get traded or not. I'm not going to guess that or predict that. I was very surprised he didn't play. Pacers went 9 deep against the Kings, and their 4 bench players were Mathurin, McConnell, Brissett, and Theis. And they didn't go 10 deep to get Duarte in like they have in other games, like they have more often throughout the season. And that was that Lakers game when he did play against the Lakers. But this Kings game after the Lakers game was the second time the whole season the Pacers have been fully healthy, every player available, right? They were not tonight against the Cavs because Duarte has an ankle injury, which we'll talk about in a second. So that was surprising. I did not play coach's decision for a lottery pick last season who made all rookie. Yes, he's having a down year, no doubt. He struggled to fit in. He had a 6-week injury. Like, yeah, that's all a problem. But, they were putting him in a 10-man rotation. Carlisle said before the season they might go 10 or 11 deep some games. This is why. They have a lot of guys who are worthy of minutes. Not playing Chris Duarte is really something. And again, we'll find out next week what that's all about. if he's part of their plans, if he's not, what the deal is. But I think that if they continue to not play him, I think that's a mistake. But we'll see where that ends up heading. He's been dealing with his ankle injury all season. He said he's had some pain every so often. Carlisle was kind of explaining that like when he lands, sometimes it hurts. So he was lifting over the weekend on Saturday, and it was in pain, Carlisle said. And so he missed their game on Sunday with that ankle injury. So that was an actual injury absence. I don't know if it was bugging him Friday or not, but that one is worth monitoring. Duarte not playing is very surprising to me, given where the Pacers are at in their current build and what his skills are and how he can fit. And if he doesn't get traded and continues to not play, I would consider that a mistake. But again, right now, this week especially, it's not worth to me getting all up in arms about the rotation with so much going on, with a lot at stake. Who knows what if any player is or isn't in trade talks? I have guesses, but I don't know anything. I don't think anyone does except for the Pacers front office. So we'll see what happens. But that is my take on the rotation at this stage in time. Talk to me again next Monday. Then we can have a much more serious conversation about what does and doesn't make sense for this basketball team. Hope that all makes sense. And I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. It's always nice when the Pacers play twice and you can watch a lot of basketball. We'll be back tomorrow talking latest Pacers trade rumors. We'll try to fit in some trade stuff every single day this week until the deadline, planning for the deadline, all sorts of random trade deadline stuff with it coming up on Thursday. Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit of Heat, a little bit of what we learned at practice this week, more trade stuff, of course, like I said. Thursday, the final trade deadline preview, talking about that Heat game. And then Friday, well, it explodes. We talk all about the trades and what's going on. Maybe I'll do a show about how various moves that happened before Thursday impact the Pacers. There's a lot to talk about as the NBA landscape changes, because the Pacers are a part of said landscape. I hope that's interesting to you. I'm on Twitter at TEastNBA. This show is at Locked On Pacers. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We will see you tomorrow.